Welcome back to After Work Athletics. This video is going to be about demographics and just everything that goes behind everything that makes up my athletic background up to this point. Quick introduction to the channel. So, what After Work Athletics is. The whole point of After Work Athletics is to focus on what like an average person going towards various athletic goals looks like. In this case, right now we're on track working towards the half Ironman that's coming up, and then it's going to be the full Ironman, i.e. this is called Project Ironman. But eventually, hopefully the point is to work with other people, friends, family, whoever, and just track journeys that follow people going after whatever. If somebody else that I know or somebody maybe wants to run a ultra marathon or a 100-mile race, whatever it is, ultra marathon, it could be like Project Ultra or what have you. But the whole point is myself, various people, hopefully, that are all trying to go after athletic achievements, but while doing so, not completely flipping their life around and still being able to kind of go after these cool athletic goals and maintain some semblance of their normal lifestyle and livelihood that they had before going into it. Obviously, all this stuff takes a degree of sacrifice. All of it's going to have its lifestyle changes. I don't think it's reasonable to expect absolutely nothing to change and your schedule just is already able to be adopted into, or one of these training plans, I should say, can just immediately be adopted into your existing schedule. But hopefully it doesn't have to just completely uproot it or uproot your life. Speaking of challenges, before we get into the video, there's going to be probably about 5 or 6 weeks between this video and the previous one. Why that is. The whole point of the channel is to document what a normal person who this is not their primary job and can't devote a essentially endless amount of time or whatever it is to doing this, and the various things and problems and challenges that come up. So, breaking it down. One, I scheduled a DEXA scan and that got pushed back. And this whole video is going to be about demographics. So it's like height, weight, body fat percentage, what that looks like, X, Y, and Z. And the appointment for that kept getting pushed back. So that delayed a little bit. Then on one of the weekdays before the weekend that I planned on shooting most of this footage, I had some random allergic reaction that occurred. And I'm going to pop a photo up. And essentially my left eye was just shut closed. We still don't really know what it was. They gave me a bunch of steroids and antihistamines, but I've never been allergic to anything in my life. So that was super sketchy. And then it took like a week, maybe a week and a half for it to completely resolve and for me not to look crazy like a pirate or whatever. So I didn't want to film a video that's going to be a lot of just talking straight into the camera and have one eye closed. Then, in the meantime of all that, because I was trying to get that video filmed and put up beforehand, I started my last college course and my capstone, which I'll get into a little bit when I talk more so about the scheduling. We put our home for sale on the market, which took a lot of prep work and working with the realtor and everything else. I literally just got a text from her as I'm still filming this. I just got a text from her because we have an open house in 3 hours. And I'm just up trying to be early in the morning getting this filmed because it's been taking too long. So, DEXA delay. Random thing with my eye, starting my school, putting my house up on the market, and then what I'm potentially trying to do is transition from finishing this degree here in about 8 weeks, and then moving into doing my pilot's license, my private pilot's license, and then eventually transition that into an aeronautics degree, and eventually working towards becoming a CFI. So, cute little clip here. All 5 of those things ended up kind of stacking all on top of each other. And there was a good 2 to 3 weeks there that I literally did not have the time to sit down and film this. I had been taking notes on my phone. I had been doing XYZ. And I just could not find the time. And all of that's not even to mention, obviously, the actual training for this half Ironman and eventually full Ironman. And then the YouTube stuff. So, I mean, those are all just what I would consider my, minus the polling thing, but the rest of it is like my absolute bare minimum things that I have to attend to. And then you have the training, and then it's also now trying to film the training and upload it and stuff like that. So just to give a brief synopsis of what it looks like trying to squeeze all this stuff in together. But anyways, moving on to the video, or the main part of the video. So demographics. So I am 5'9". I weigh 196 pounds, and that came in at 15.6% body fat on the most recent DEXA. And as a little bit of a reference, when I was training for the marathon, I'd also done one right around the same time where I'd begun training, was kind of in the middle of it, not necessarily at the end, not right before. So very similar timing of when I got that DEXA to when I got this one within the training plan, comparatively towards the half Ironman and towards the marathon. And at that time, I was 180 pounds at 11.2% body fat. So I wanted it to be less body fat that I added to gain that weight. And those two DEXAs were about a little bit of a year and change apart. I'm going to put them up and just have all the numbers so you can look at whatever you want to look at. And for my own, like I said, diary kind of purposes, so I can see it. But yeah, in a little over a year of intentionally trying to eat more, not like counting macros and all that kind of stuff, but just knowing that I was trying to eat a little bit more than I normally would and could tell that I was putting on weight, we gained 16 pounds and ballpark about 4.5% body fat today, currently 196 at 5'9" and 15% body fat. What does that look like? And I could even jacked up. Just so you could see, it's probably pretty decent lighting just coming in through my window. But if you were ever curious, or if you're watching people's videos like I have and been like, what does I'm just trying to like shake out and not be cheating or whatever, as far as like this is just what you actually look like, and maybe I'll throw in clips from other angles, other viewpoints, whatever it is. So point is, you ever seen somebody who, or watch videos from somebody who just looks absolutely shredded, or doesn't look in shape at all, and maybe they're blowing your numbers out of the water, or you're actually, doing a little bit better than that person or whatever in all these training videos and stuff like that, and you're just kind of wondering how you compare, especially like how your body looks compared to that person or how your numbers compare to that person. That is my basic demographics. All right, moving on to nutrition. So just talked about height, weight, body fat percentage, what that looks like, and then what am I eating, what does my nutrition look like in order to, not to say achieve, but to be at those numbers. Got a little breakdown. I know I probably should just memorize this stuff and not have to look at it, but I am not a professional, and this is much easier. So before going into some very brief numbers about my nutrition, I just want to give my 2 cents. I've never tracked nutrition before this, even like going into the marathon, stuff like that. I've always had an idea, or I've tried to do things like, always eat the same thing before a run or certain stuff like that. Listen to your body. It will tell you what it needs. If you're eating way too much of one thing or not enough of another, you're going to feel sluggish, you're going to feel off. In the same vein as listening to your body, you know that if you go make some plain chicken, maybe put it in like a salad, get a low-fat dressing or whatever, and eat that versus going out and getting fast food and getting 2 Big Macs, you know which one is better and which one is worse. Generally speaking, I think most people have a rough idea of what to eat, and that is pretty much all you really need. You can achieve within a ballpark range of what you want to without having to do any sort of fancy weighing of your food and tracking all your macros down to the gram and doing all that kind of stuff. I've never done it. I am just now starting for the first time ever, and it is almost like an experiment. I just want to know if I really do track it and try to dial it in, how much of a difference is it going to make, and is it worth it? Because again, the whole point of this channel is after work athletics. So people who have all sorts of other things going in their life, work, family, X, Y, and Z, is it really necessary to track your macros and try to get within like all these ranges for the different types of foods that you're eating? Or can you get away with a much better return on your investment by just simply paying attention to what you're cooking without tracking it precisely? So with all that being said, I don't think this is entirely necessary. However, if you're interested, I tracked my nutrition for a week. I was very good about it. I got the app Chronometer and just put in every single thing that I ate for about a week. And what it came back was I was averaging anywhere between 36 to 4,400 calories a day, 144 to 217 grams of protein, 225 to 475 grams of carbs, and 155 to 203 grams of fat. So that was me on a pretty average week. After speaking to a registered dietitian, which I'm going to get back to that and the DEXA here in a minute, we've come up with the goals of 475 grams of carbs, 175 to 190 grams of protein, and 120 grams of fat. So those were what I was averaging. That is what a registered dietitian has recommended that I eat, and we'll see how this goes. Talking about other aspects of nutrition other than food, so hydration. I take in about 130 fluid ounces of water a day, give or take 10 to 20 fluid ounces. It's pretty consistent. I'll put 1 pack of LMNT in my 70 fluid ounce water bottle for the first half of the day. By the time I'm done with work, that's normally empty. I put another pack of LMNT, so 2 packs a day, in my workout bottle, which is about 30 fluid ounces. Drink that throughout the gym or the sauna, and then have another couple glasses of water until I go to bed for the night. I don't drink much else other than energy drink, like a Monster, Red Bull, something like that, black coffee, and then the water. That is all there is to my hydration. And then the only other thing that I take in on a daily basis is 8 to 10 milligrams of creatine. I say 8 to 10 because I honestly don't pay attention that much with the little scooper. I did 2 scoops. It's roughly 5 grams a scoop. It's not like they're perfectly topped off, so probably actually falls within that like 8 to 10 milligram range. I wanted to quickly touch on nicotine, alcohol, and circle back to that caffeine a little bit that I talked about in hydration. So for nicotine, pretty much up until the training for this half Ironman and eventually full Ironman, I was using about a can to a can and a half of 9 milligram velos a day. That's an insane amount of nicotine. I have basically no self-control with that. And if I'm on nicotine, which I have been for most of my adult life, then it's pretty much balls to the wall. And then when I get off, I have to just cold turkey it. I've never been able to do some sort of like wean off or whatever. But the big factor with that, or the reason that I think it's important, especially for the training or these training videos, is when you're on nicotine, or at least when I am, my resting heart rate is at least 20, maybe even more, like 25 beats higher per minute than it is when I'm off. And then when I go to train, my heart rate jacks up and just spikes way easier because I'm literally taking out a pouch right before I start a run. And if it's a really long run, I bring some with me and I would still use them while I'm actually running. So that's terrible. I stopped that back, it was a New Year's quit actually. So January 1st, 2026 was the last day using nicotine. It was definitely rough getting off, but I want to make sure that I bring up aspects or talk about things as we go through them that these athletic goals, right? So after work athletics, like trying to achieve certain athletic feats or competitions or whatever it is, the like benefits that aren't necessarily directly related to the actual working out and like the athletics themselves. One of those benefits is quitting nicotine, right? I love nicotine, still do. Think there's a decent chance at some point in my life I start using it again. But for right now, in order for me to be able to train and my heart rate not to be through the roof while I'm training, or not to jack up my resting heart rate and my blood pressure and everything else, I literally had to quit, or there's just no way I was going to be able to train at the volume that I need to in order to be able to do this. So it's kind of an indirect benefit by providing a motivation to quit nicotine. The same thing kind of applies to alcohol. I haven't been a huge drinker anyways for the last couple of years of my life. Maybe I would drink, uh, once a weekend or maybe even twice a weekend, like maybe a couple of years ago. And then in the last 2 years, that's kind of dropped off to maybe once every other week to like once a month. So I haven't had to adjust my alcohol consumption all that much. But what I will say, especially if you're somebody who maybe you would just like to start drinking a little bit less, you think it'd be better for your health or whatnot, which I bet it would. There are definitely nights where, despite only really drinking once a month, maybe twice a month at the most, anyways, but even on those 1 or 2 times, if I have a 3 hour bike or a 2 hour run, or I'm going to go do an open ocean swim the next morning, and I don't want to feel like shit for those, it's just another motivating factor to not do it or to not indulge. So, for some people, alcohol is a much more like normal part of their life, and I'm not casting judgment one way or the other. If it's something you engage in more frequently, and that's something as like when we talk about lifestyle changes and not abruptly having to change a whole bunch of stuff about your life and still be able to do these athletic goals, then power to you and however you figure that out. But I think less alcohol is always a good thing. And this training, with just the sheer amount of volume and everything going into it, it's very motivating to nick a lot of these bad habits, such as alcohol, nicotine, what have you. Last thing, caffeine. I consume black coffee and an energy drink pretty much every day. My normal routine is a black coffee on the way to work, and then I'll normally have some sort of energy drink around noon to get me over that hump, kind of finish out the workday, and sort of be a pre-workout towards my lift. Energy drinks or even a lot of pre-workouts are not going to be the most healthy thing. Again, I think a lot of this ties back to the idea of what are you willing to give up, or like what do you want to change about your lifestyle in order to achieve these goals, and really like how well are you going to perform. So, quick recap. Nicotine. Used to do about a can to a can and a half of 9 milligram nicotine pouches per day. I quit that back on January 1st. I drink probably once a month, maybe twice a month at the best, and that's probably no more than like 3 or 4 drinks in a given night. Caffeine, I'm probably consuming anywhere between probably ballparking 400 milligrams a day. I know it's not good for me, but I do love caffeine. I love coffee, and that's one of those things, or one of those vices that, despite wanting to train pretty hard for this and really see how well I can perform for the half Ironman, this is not something I'm willing to give up in my daily life because I really like it, and you're making other sacrifices to do this stuff. So, yeah. Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this video was my background that led up to where I'm currently at with my athleticism. I had an active childhood, played sports in the streets with the other kids, backyard football, all that kind of stuff, leading up through elementary, middle school, into high school sports. So played a bunch of different high school sports, and then had a little bit of a break of like really being super athletic for a couple of years there in my early adulthood. And then from, maybe like 21, 22 and on, I've maintained a pretty like normal frequency of working out, 3 to 4 times in the gym a week. Sometimes you fall off for a couple of weeks, you get back on. Sometimes you're running for a few months there, like staying up on cardio, and then you take like a few months off. You don't really do it, but in general, always doing something that kind of keeps you active. Then my main hobby is surfing, which I've been doing since I was 22 or 23, and now I'm 27, so the last 4 years or so. Depending on the surf and the rest of the conditions in the water and everything else, it can drastically change how strenuous like a 2 to 3 hour surf session is. And surfing is just in general good at keeping up your athleticism and all that kind of good stuff. That leads up until, so surfing and like a kind of average gym and other cardio routine leading up until I was about 25. Then started going down the marathon route, trained up for that, did the marathon when I was 26 last year, and then here I am now, 27. I took a small break after the marathon, kind of beat up, and like just did a 6-month training plan for that. Maybe a couple months off where I wasn't really getting after it all that much, and then started getting back into my normal, like I said, 3 to 4 times a gym, whatever routine, doing a little bit of running, a little bit of cardio, and then the Ironman training kicking off, about 4 or 5 months after that in, what was it, October of this past year. So that is from my childhood till now, just my background in general, athletics and stuff like that. And then to see where we're at right now, today. These clickers in the first video that I ever posted, I've been just tracking my totals that I've done since I've started training. So in order of the Ironman, or any triathlon for that matter, we have our swim. We have swam 17,100 meters since starting this. And we have biked 456 miles. A lot of this has been on a trainer, and it's very hard to get a consistent read on that because this is just based off of whatever it is that the Zwift app told me. I'd say out of these 456 miles, only about a quarter or so have been on the actual road, and the rest have been on the trainer. So I'm not really sure how accurate that is. And then run. We have ran 118 miles since we've started it. So 17,000 meters, give or take, about 450 miles on the bike, give or take, and 118 miles. And that one is pretty specific. I track with my Garmin and with my Whoop, and they're normally within a very small margin of each other. So I'm pretty confident in those numbers. Now, with all that training and my background, where does that leave me as far as my performance right now? Starting with the swim. I am at roughly 1 minute and 55 seconds for my 100-meter time for distance. So my distance swims are normally between 1650 meters, about a mile, to 2,000 meters. And I'm able to fairly comfortably average 1 minute and 55 seconds per 100 meters, and that's intentionally not using the wall a ton. I will obviously still touch and kick off the wall, but it's a pretty light kick. I don't really let myself glide a whole bunch, and then I get back into my stroke. So for the bike, I really didn't know what metric to go with as far as bike is concerned. My Zwift app will tell me that my FTP is 208. I don't believe that. I've not yet tried to bike at 208 watts continuously for an hour, but I seriously doubt I'm able to do that. That seems a little high. So then how else do you really like compare, I guess, other than your functional threshold power? You could go like heart rate, stuff like that. Just as a generic scope of what my biking looks like right now, on the Zwift app, which is connected to the Garmin TacX trainer, so I don't know how well this translates to other trainers and to outside, but I normally hold for my distance rides right now about 130 to 140 watts for like a 2.5 to 3 hour ride, and that's pretty sustainable. I honestly have no idea how accurate any of that is. I don't have a bike computer or a GPS or a power meter or anything like that on my bike yet for this first one, for the half Ironman. I'm planning on going in pretty much no equipment like that. I have my Garmin, which on my outdoor rides, I just track my heart rate and try to stay in zone 2 for the distance ones. And I think that's pretty much how I'm going to train for the last 80 some odd days until the half. So I don't know if I have the best metrics to be able to like compare or explain where my biking is at. And then running, I genuinely had never come across the concept of aerobic threshold / like zone 2 until I got into this and then started watching other people's content in XYZ. And I was pretty shocked that my zone 2 right now, and this is after a good month and a half, 2 months of getting exposed to the concept and starting to do it, my mile pace for distance is about 11:30. I let myself go closer to that 160 mark, and that's what I still consider aerobic threshold. Again, after work athletics, another main concept, right? Nothing is going to be exactly perfect. This is not getting dialed in like a professional who, you could be on like a treadmill with a VO2 mask and like XYZ and all that kind of crazy shit. I still want to rely a little bit on just how my body feels and what feels right. And keeping it at 153 or even less, I have to change my gait so drastically as I'm running and just go so slow. And maybe I'm wrong for kind of refusing to do this, but just by another, 5 to 7 beats, getting to 160 has put me in a very comfortable stride that I can hold for however long. And by the end of that 12 miles, it was definitely my muscular endurance, like my legs getting heavy, getting worn out, than it was my cardiovascular. I think I'm in a pretty comfortable position. And yeah, as a recap, swim about 155 per 100 meters. That is in a pool. Bike, I think I am in the ballpark of, let's say, 175 to 200 as my true functional threshold power. And I've been riding at about 130 watts to 140 watts for distance rides, and running at about 1130 mile pace in order to keep my heart rate at my aerobic threshold slash my little custom aerobic threshold. And I think that about covers it.